thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to take part in this historic debate. Indeed, it's a historic moment for all of us here. Before I begin my intervention, I would like to put on record that I am one of those National Assembly members who is going to vote in favor of this new draft constitution. Honorable Speaker, may I say that should anything happen to me before the vote is taken, please, I want honorable members to remember me as one of those who are in favor of this bill. Why? Because it represents the wishes and aspirations of my people. Since this whole issue came up, I have never received a single call from my constituency denying or rejecting this draft constitution. All the calls that I received so far have urged me to support this. So I am doing it on the basis of that, actually, and on the basis of the greater good of the Gambian people. Having said that, Honorable Speaker, let me begin by appreciating all the efforts invested into this constitution by the CRC. Lest we forget, it is this very National Assembly who in December 2017 passed the CRC Act to have the 1997 Constitution reviewed. Now, why did we want to review the 1997 Constitution in the first place? It is because it was found to be defective. There were a lot of defects in that Constitution. It has been amended over 50 times. And when this new government, of course, and the National Assembly came into existence, one of the fundamental changes that we wanted to do was to change the 1997 Constitution. And for me, honestly, I find it quite intriguing that the same National Assembly members who spoke in favor of reviewing the Constitution are now turning around and trying to condemn the National Assembly Constitution, the new draft Constitution. I definitely find that intriguing. Honorable Speaker, you know, this whole exercise has been a very, very expensive one. A lot of material resources was invested in it. A lot of human resources was invested in it. And a lot of financial resources was invested in it to a tune of over $116 million. Now, rejecting this constitution is like, you know, sending all that money into the drain. This is something that we need to look at properly. One of the aims of the Constitution, if I may read from my notes, is that the CRC stated clearly in their executive summary that the constitutional review was meant to uphold and respect for the rule of law and fundamental human rights, ensure democratic participation in national affairs, provide a solid foundation for good governance, and establish governance institutions. If these reasons are not enough to convince anybody to support this constitution, I don't know what else would. Because what I've just read are actually some of the fundamental errors or some fundamental flaws that the 1997 Constitution did not address. So we constituted the ISACRC to address those issues. And now we are turning around and saying, no, this is not good enough. This is something I just cannot understand. Honorable Speaker, when the CRC set out to work on this draft constitution, they consulted extensively in the Gambia and outside of the Gambia. And every single Gambian who cared to contribute any idea was given the opportunity, including this very National Assembly members. We have been engaged. We were given opportunities to contribute. And today, what is happening? None of us here would say that the consultation process was discriminatory. I don't think, because all the communities were visited in the Gambia and further afield. The consultation was extensive. And nobody would say, well, we are going to reject this constitution based on the fact that, the ideas of Gambians who cared to contribute anything was not considered. Nobody would say that. And now today, we are here talking as if nothing happened before, as everything was imposed on us. This is not fair. We cannot trivialize all the efforts of these great men and women of the Gambia who drafted this constitution, who contributed everything to make sure that they provide us with a constitution that is better than the previous one. How can we trivialize their efforts? I was listening to the debate yesterday, and I was disappointed at some of the statements that are uttered here. One of which is that the Constitution was plagiarized. Those who spoke about plagiarism may not necessarily mention the word plagiarism, but when you say you cut and paste, that essentially is plagiarism. That this constitution is a plagiarized constitution from the Ghanaian constitution. And in academia, lest they don't know, plagiarism means taking somebody's work or somebody's idea and pass it on as your own. But when you use somebody else's ideas or somebody else's work and you acknowledge it, that's not plagiarism. I think they need to educate themselves about plagiarism. So it's not a plagiarized constitution. And there is nothing wrong to borrow ideas from other ideas. We always adopt and adapt to suit our own situation. That is what they have done. That's not plagiarism, in case they don't know. Honorable Speaker, another issue that came up during the debate was on citizenship. A lot of people have expressed concern about citizenship, both within this assembly and outside of the assembly. But for me personally, this is my personal opinion, that citizenship must be jealously guarded. We have to protect our citizenship. Every country has their own peculiarities. So what is good in Uganda is not necessarily going to be good for the Gambia. So we have to understand our own peculiarities when it comes to that. Gambia is one of the smallest countries in Africa, yet one of the most populated countries in Africa. So we cannot allow our citizenship, we cannot just open the floodgates for everybody to come and become a citizen, automatically through birthright. Of course, the Constitution is clear. Nobody is barring anybody from acquiring Gambian citizens, and that's clearly stated. There are channels, there are legal ways of doing it through either registration or naturalization. So I don't see anything wrong with that, Honorable Speaker. And then there is also the issue of ministerial appointments being confirmed by the National Assembly, and so many people expressed dissatisfaction with this particular law when it comes into effect. But for me, this is complementarity between the executive and the judiciary, not necessarily politicizing the whole exercise. When the executive nominates people for the ministerial position, they are brought to the National Assembly for vetting and confirmation. For me, that is complementarity. We're not necessarily going to subject anything to politics. But because, definitely we do have a lot of different political parties represented here. So I don't think nobody is going to politicize it if indeed the nation's interests is important to us. We will not politicize that appointment. I'm going to keep it short, and then, Honorable Speaker, with the final note, I would just want to say that rejecting this draft constitution is going to be one of the fundamental failures of this National Assembly and this government. It's going to be a fundamental failure for this National Assembly and the government, and it is also going to be a lack of respect for the Gambians whose wishes and aspirations we say we are representing in the National Assembly. So, Honorable Speakers, I would urge each and every one of us to vote in favor of this draft constitution. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I beg to take my seat.